And now, from beyond our dimension, this is the JeffMara podcast. Here's Jeff.
My guest is Brian Tseng, also known as Solar Bee. He's an organizer and advocate to the Full Disclosure movement. He's had UFO and paranormal experiences, and he is the creator of the Full Disclosure Now conference. Brian, welcome back. It's great to have you again.
Yeah, it's a pleasure and an honor to be here again, Jeff. And it's also been really gratifying for me to be able to send you guests and for you to give them a platform to your amazing audience here.
Well, Brian, I really appreciate you doing that because you can't imagine how difficult it can be to have a new guest every day. It can be sometimes very difficult. And I don't know if I've asked you this before, but what does the name Solar Bee mean?
So it kind of goes back to after I got my biochemistry degree at Occidental College. I had a buddy saying, "Hey, B, yo, what's up, B? Let's go hang out, B." And I said, "Are you calling me a like, why are you calling me a B?" He's like, "No, Brian, B, your name's Brian, B for Brian." I'm like, "Oh, duh." I felt so bad. And so, my nickname kind of like, yeah, you can call me B. Whenever anyone asks, like, if you have a nickname, like, yeah, call me B. And then later on, I went to Burning Man from 2000 to like 2021, maybe. And during that time, I took a Playa nickname. So I was Playa B. And then later on, I ended up selling solar and electric cars, like for Tesla and solar for other companies, home solar. So I became Solar B, or Brian the Solar Bee. And since then, I've learned that when ETs identify themselves, often they'll say, "I am, Ashtar of, a Palladian star," whatever the name of that star is, Minoc or whatever, And so I'm the bee of soul. Our sun is also known as soul, or the solar. So I'm Solar Bee, and I kind of kept that moniker as a way to distinguish me from all the other Brian Tsengs out there.
It's pretty cool that you've been to Burning Man. Have you ever seen anything paranormal happen there?
Yes. Yeah. So, the Burn, it started out as kind of a bohemian party festival by Larry Harvey, who was mourning the end of a relationship where another man basically ran off with his women. And so he built up a wooden effigy of that and first burnt it on Baker Beach, San Francisco in like 1984 or something like that. And then later on, as that beach bonfire party grew and got more wild, they moved it out to the Black Rock Desert. I currently live here in northern Nevada, about 80 miles east of where Burning Man is held, Black Rock Desert, as the crow flies. And, it's been a magnet because of the people from the Bay Area and all over the world for people who are into, magic or Wicca or ceremony. Unfortunately, some are into Luciferianism, and there have been people who have committed suicide by running into the fire on the main night of the burn, really ruining it for everyone else in attendance. It's just a very selfish, terrible, evil thing to do. And yeah, I've seen darkness there, where the one night was it was burn night, and that's when the most chaos and mayhem ensues, and the most fun. Depends on what line, what side of the line you want to walk there. And there were people who were like mocking Yeshua or Jesus, where it was like Jesus was like wearing a big diaper. Like the one guy is dressed up like Jesus, but wearing a big diaper and like carrying like this cross to drag it to throw it into the fire. And uh he had people like mocking him, like, and they're like whipping him or like throwing beer at him, while he's like dragging the cross in the fire to throw it in. And just the energy around them was just so dark. There's just like a really low energy vibe. And unfortunately, there are people who are attracted to the burn to harvest negative loosh, negative energy, to do negative ceremony. There are people there who They might go there to try to roofie, a beautiful Burning Man festival goer and try to abscond with her. That kind of stuff can happen in places like this. And unfortunately, the burn has gone from a culture that was much more safe and open and loving to one that's become much more commercialized, overhyped, and then unsafe in some ways when you get the negative elements. But I don't want to say, oh, be afraid of the burn or this or that. You've got the beautiful and the negative elements, and they all get together at the same place.
It kind of reminds me of Woodstock too. You had the original one and then they had one in, I don't know, in the 90s or something, but it turned out to be this commercial event and it seemed like it was ultimately like a disaster.
Yeah, well, the burn has always been a reflection of the culture of San Francisco and the economy, and then the larger world in general. And so when San Francisco Bay Area had so many more artists and visionaries and inventors and musicians and chefs, you know, um, and hardworking, salt to the earth people of all types, and that a lot of them got priced out and forced out and replaced with a lot of people who want to be the next Mark Zuckerberg.comer, then what you're going to see out there on the playa at Burning Man is going to be a reflection of that. When it was the Bay Area was full of all the artists and dreamers and amazing inventors, and now you're in the desert with them, that's amazing. When it's more the people who they want to be the next .com zillionaire programmer, and they're there looking to find like the people to show them all the magic of what San Francisco used to have compared to today, and it's a different story.
Has there ever been any UFO sightings out there?
I believe so. There are people who've reported on seeing lots of things in the skies. But it's hard to say because you really do have a lot of stuff flying around there. People are flying drones. They're setting up fire lanterns. They've got lasers like in the sky, pointers and spotlights. People floating like balloons that look like the moon. It's like a big balloon that looks exactly like the moon, and it's glowing. And because it's like, closer here to Earth, obviously it's a balloon. You can kind of like see the real moon and then see this glowing balloon, and you can mistake the two. And then the balloon's moving along as a person has it tethered to their bike throughout the night. It's kind of hilarious.
That's pretty
So it's
cool.
hard to say. The UFO that I personally seen is hovering here over the city town of Winnemucca, northern Nevada, where I live, up on the mountainside of Winnemucca Mountain, overlooking the town. And there's a large cloud bank over the town. And so if you were in town, looking straight up, you just see a giant cloud bank graying out the sky. From where myself and my one business partner, Jaden Mills, and he'll figure more in probably today's podcast. He and we got to see, we're more looking down on the town. We're level with the cloud bank right here outside my window. And sticking through the cloud bank, you could kind of see like a hard, straight edge. Like there's like a craft inside the cloud bank, and then a little bit of the cloud is like pushed to the side so you could see the ship peeking through. And I was saying to Jaden, and this was last year, I'm like, Jaden, is that a UFO craft in the sky? And this is like literally the size of the town. And these ships can easily get that larger, even much larger, I'm told. And as you can see, from all the astronomy done of the moon, people have been showing, many people from around the world from different angles throughout the last several years, showing mothership-sized craft flying around the surface of the moon.
Well, I was going to ask, do you think that that ship is a mothership?
I'd say it classifies as mothership size. Anything large enough to hold lots of other smaller ships and people, and that the size of our town, which is a couple of miles across, um, I'd say would definitely qualify. And then, I've asked several people through their galactic type contacts like Christopher Jacobs or Audrey Walters, that what was that craft here for? And they said in part there is an underground base here under Winnemucca Mountain, Apparently, it's one of the next maglev stops from Area 51 in southern Nevada, we're northern central Nevada, and then also to check in on myself and some of the others to say hi.
I didn't realize that there's a base there.
Yeah, here in Winnemucca Mountain, if you go on Wikipedia, I think they say it's like a decommissioned Air Force base because they have got these radar type communication setups, installations up at the top of the mountain. But other people we've seen, like trucks driving off a Jungo Road and then going around the mountain, like my Jaden and another one of our business partners, John, they saw this huge convoy, just like of like army type military vehicles going off the side road and then disappearing off around the mountain and other things like that. And other people in town talk about seeing more activity up here than you would expect from a decommissioned base.
Brian, what are the events and the things that happened to you in your life that steered you into this direction of disclosure?
So I've had paranormal experiences. Like the main really in my face one was probably when I was about 20 years old. I went with my parents to go see the magician David Copperfield at Atlantic City at one of the casinos. He was doing his magic shows there. And at the end of the show, the announcer goes, ladies and gentlemen, if you'd like to meet David and shake his hand in person, at the end of the show, come on to the, stage front and center and wait in line and you'll get to meet David. So, my parents and I were like, yeah, that's cool. Like we came here to see a show. That's cool. We can shake his hand. Well, let's do that. And so, my parents were waiting off to the side. I waited in the line to meet David. The younger people and elderly people, they got to take their time with him. I just wanted to be real quick at the end, shake his hand and let him know, hey, nice to meet you. You're a great performer. Thank you. Great magician. And as I was shaking his hand, trying to say that, David, Mr. Copperfield, great job tonight. I'm so happy to be here. I stumbled. And the reason why I stumbled was as I was shaking his hand and looking him in the eyes, his eyes turned jet black on me. Kind of like you'll see in the movies, like where someone's demonically possessed. And walking up to him, his eyes already had that. He already had like a fake, hey, how you doing, kid? Kind of like dummy mask, like wooden face with a dead, glinty eye stare at me. But the minute we touched hands and his eyes turned jet black, that was like, for me, it was like a big wow moment, seeing something that I would never have expected, like right out of the movies. And then later on, after, going to school in Los Angeles, from coming over from the East Coast and reading about the occult and studying about this stuff, because even though I studied biochemistry, I've always been fascinated in the paranormal, the occult, ETs, and all of this. I've learned that he may be one of these magician performers who sold, not literally sold his soul, but they signed a contract, which gives them certain abilities and powers in exchange for fame and fortune, presumably to sell their soul. And I put him in that category. And I think that was a manifestation of that. And from what I've studied of the occult and speaking to other people who are more experienced and knowledgeable than they say, and I come to the conclusion that probably when I shook his hand, you can exchange energy there, especially through that physical contact through the right hand. And he may have taken something from me, energy, a blessing, some kind of spiritual thing. He could have likewise transmitted something to me nasty, like a curse or a negative parasitic type thing. And so what I think is he probably took something from me, but in that taking, in that exchange of energy, his eyes turned black, and that was a revelation to me. I didn't get nothing off of that exchange. And now when I share it with people, I feel that he in his side lost a lot more taking whatever they took from me at that point.
Did your parents see that?
Oh no, they didn't see it, and they didn't really, even if I mentioned it, my mom would have just like brushed it off. I've always been the what do you call it? The black sheep, where I say the radiant lion of the family.
Is it possible that you have some ability where you could recognize this in people?
I've been told by many people, I've been in the programs and people have recall of me, multiple people, and then remote viewers have looked into it. And then the people who are telepathically in contact with the various positive ETs, they confirm it. Peter, the insider of the ACIO, according to him, I'm in these files regarding the secret space programs and the Montauk Project. But personally, for me, my main ability, I would say, if I have one that's activated, is I have a really strong intuition, sense of knowing which pathway to take, and if things are going to work out, if I work with a certain person or do a certain route. And in my whole life, it's gotten me to really great places and experiences and where I am now. And I've come, I'd say, really much further and faster than I would have thought in my volunteering with the full disclosure movement, and where we're going right now, where we're positioned. The tide has turned. We're on the threshold of our Star Trek future.
What does that look like?
So first, it's going to be revelation, what the other side calls catastrophic revelation, because we're literally dragging them and all their skeletons out of the closet and throwing them on the ground in front of everybody and shining a spotlight on it, which is then going to lead to more and more people not only waking up, but waking up in a very sincere, knowledgeable manner. So they're not just waking up and confused, but they're waking up and demanding justice. So Arkeem Ra, who also survived the Montauk Project, and amongst a lot of these other people, Christy Campbell, Chastity Campbell, Steve Shearer, um, Susan Long. I mean, I could name a whole. I could spend the show just naming people. James Rink, Drago Reed. Actually, I'm not sure how much of the Montauk Project Drago was, but he's secret space program. Anyway, what I would say is, you were just, I'm sorry, I was naming off people, but you were just asking about, what did you just ask me, Jeff?
Was it about that you had some kind of an ability to understand?
Oh yeah. So a lot of those people, their abilities are much more activated, and then I feel it leads them to be much more targeted. My main thing is I have a knowing. I'm told by David Purcell, he has recall of me being an astronavigator in Nachtwaffen, which is part of the German breakaway space fleet. And what Drago Reed said is, well, Brian, someone's telling you BS if they say you're an astronavigator and they describe you as being on the bridge crew with the captain and the rest of the crew. He said that astronavigators are kept in a separate area of the Nachtwaffen ships, because if anything bad happens or distraction happens on the bridge, you don't want that to interrupt or interfere with the astronavigator piloting the ship. And so I didn't tell David Purcell this. I said, well, David, you said you recall as an astronavigator on your Nachtwaffen crew. Can you tell me, like, what did that look like? Like, where was I on the bridge and all that? He said, well, actually, you weren't on the bridge. You were in a separate area, like maybe above the cargo hold or the engine room of the ship, separate from the bridge where he said I was, or him himself, David, and Susan Long and the others. And he said that he recalls that I was in a separate, smaller area wearing like some kind of helmet with all sorts of wires running out of it. And I had two like medical attendant type people with me at all times to make sure my needs were met while I was hooked into the ship.
Haven't you had other people from the secret space program tell you that they knew you when they were in it?
Well, not no, but they say they've had a recall of me. So like Susan Long and Veronica Bartolini both testified to being in something known as the Hulk program. The Hulk program, from what I can reconstruct from everybody's testimony, is a super soldier project where they take your consciousness, stick it into a cyborg body where you're literally glommed together your biological body with all sorts of augments and AI and tech. And what Susan recalls is being like on a Ford factory style assembly line, like in one of these augmented cyborg bodies with like these technicians just like being really just treating her like a piece of meat, just like jabbing like stuff into her eyeball or tearing off an arm and connecting like a cyborg arm with like a laser cannon or whatever. Or with she said she had remembers them just sticking hoses into her and pumping fluids in and out, and it was really painful. And both she and Veronica said they have recall of me being in like a white lab coat, like as a tech. And I was like up in like the skybox overlooking the factory floor because I was more like a technician kind of person. And then I asked, Susan, like, do you have recall? Like, or and Veronica, like, was I mean? Was I nasty? And they said no, more neutral. And what we're finding in the community is that a lot of the people, we'll have apparently multiple alters that mostly on the negative side because these are running dark projects and programs doing a lot of nasty stuff. But it seems some of us, we were less nasty or more nasty. And what I've found is a lot of the people who I've heard are nastier up there, well, down here, they tend to be nastier as well, nasty on the nasty side, however you want to say, compared to everyone else in our community. And they've done less shadow work and they're more susceptible to the targeting and voice to skull attacks in particular.
What prompted you to create the Full Disclosure Now conference?
Well, off of the 2023 Montauk Adventure Tour, it was so successful gathering so many survivors and witnesses and then people to, journalists and psychic mediums and sensitives there that some of us wanted to do a follow-up conference event to keep the momentum going because all of us realize the need for disclosure until the world knows the truth that underground bases exist and ETs, the good and the bad, have cut deals with our governments, that this technology, Star Trek level technology exists and it's under our feet or above our skies. Um, we're never going to get access to any of it. And so looking around, I see a lot of conferences that are gatekept, limited hangout. They'll talk about endlessly for days about UFOs in the skies and the latest videographic thermal evidence, but that's as far as they get. I want to organize and rally all the people who they've been on those craft, they've been in those bases. They have recall of various alters. They have recall of being sent on missions to alter this timeline for the negative as time soldiers in the Montauk Project. And that's what is, like there's some people in our community where they organize their own conferences and they'll talk all day happily about, UFO sightings and things like that. But you want to talk to them about secret space programs and breakaway civilizations, and they will literally roll their eyes at you. And to me, it's really insulting to have worked with so many amazing people who have been victim to so many of these programs in just so many nasty ways. And then you speak to someone who you think is in the disclosure movement alongside you, and they eye roll you. It's like, you know, they're the legitimate disclosure people, but we're the live action role playing people. And it's gaslighting of the highest order from the people who you would have thought would be on our side.
Do you think it's best if the government disclose ETs to us or if the ETs did it themselves?
So they're already disclosing themselves. Our friends at the Farsight Institute with Dr. Courtney Brown and Yemi Genet. Yemi Genet's personal friend. She spoke at our conference last year. She's speaking again this July in Florida at St. Pete Beach. She and the Farsight Institute, they do what are known as ET boardroom meetings. And they've been publishing these for everyone to watch either on Farsight Prime or also for free on YouTube. And last year, November 13th, they were told during one of these ET boardroom meetings that there would soon be worldwide sightings of UFOs in our skies. November 15th, they aired that knowledge. November 18th, we had worldwide UFO sightings. The entire world, instead of giving a single shred of credit to the Farsight Institute, if any credit was given, they gave it to Cliff High, saying that he and his AI computer algorithm detected the blips indicating there would be UFO sightings in November, when really the Farsight Institute called it 5 days ahead and published it 3 days ahead.
Are you still following the Farsight Institute? And if so, have they revealed anything that's going to happen soon?
Well, they've been revealing that according to their Galactic Federation contacts, a lot of the mayhem that we're seeing in the world, the other side, the negative elements who want to drag us down a transhumanism timeline, they wanted to drag all of this stuff out, like the Ukraine war, the biological stuff for the next. They wanted it to drag out for 10 years, from 2020 to 2030, and then that lines us up with like Agenda 2030. The Farsight Institute, I don't think they specifically name Agenda 2030, but it lines up. And what the more positive galactics are saying is that it's a good thing that we're having all of these crises happening all at once now, because what it's doing is, instead of the frog slow boiling in water as the crises just get more and more and build up on each other, what's happening is they're happening so fast and in our faces in such a manner that the other side can't properly orchestrate them to harvest all of us. It's revealing and waking up the people. And that's exactly what I see going on in the community around me. I have a family friend who had a spontaneous Kundalini activation. And it's someone who's like a normie stuck in the 3D. Talk of ETs is crazy. And now she's realizing ETs are real, past lives are real, psychic abilities are real. She could, for a while, was hearing people's thoughts and things like that. She was telepathically activated. And that's going to happen more and more.
What makes the Full Disclosure Now conference different from all those other UFO related conferences out there?
The fact that we're the size in our second year, I'd say, presenter wise, of Contact in the Desert in their 12th year. And then we won't eye roll anybody. We do, I'm not putting on a flat earther, for example, or people who are saying things contradictory to 90% of everyone else that I feel to be legitimate and valid. But if you can speak coherently to secret space programs, breakaway civilizations, time travel, ET contact, or you've been in the trenches working with the whistleblowers and the survivors, people like Miles Johnston, who first broke the story on secret space programs and black goo decades ago. He's on my stage. So folks like that, of that caliber. And then the newcomer, I'm not going to say the newcomers, people who are new to the public, but really are known in our community, because like multiple people will remember them from the projects and programs or up in space, and people who deserve to be known. And those are the people I'm bringing. So it's a mix of the well-known people and then the up and comers, as long as you have a cogent, coherent testimony regarding this content.
Are you going to have a Skywatch party or a CE5 event?
Yeah, I'm not sure who exactly is going to do it. If Misha Johnston can make it out, then she'll be leading them, and so we're hoping she can join us. She's still a little bit up in the air. If not her, we'll probably have other people, and people spontaneously, just gathering on the beach together in our crowd. They are doing that, and people did apparently see craft last year. And they saw plenty of stuff in the astral, in the etheric. My joke is that a lot of times this stuff is happening all around me and I don't see it. So I've been to, I consider them an amazing sister event and friendly conference, because they adhere to the same criteria. Journey to Truth, they do their Rebels of Disclosure event. Last year, there were Sasquatch. I could hear them. They were knocking on the trees. They're doing the twig breaking and the tree knocking, and I might even heard like a hoot. But the people, several of them that I was with, like Margie K of the Unex Network, and Kira Engels, she's a very powerful psychic medium. They're able to see the Bigfoot. They're like, oh yeah, there's like an adult Bigfoot, and oh look how cute, looks like there's a smaller an adolescent. And I'm like, like, I can't see anything, but I could hear it. So
What does a post-disclosure world look like to you?
when the breakaway civilizations reveal themselves, and they themselves, apparently a lot of people in these breakaway colonies, they themselves are lied to. They've been told that the earth has already been destroyed by cobalt bombing, and it's uninhabitable here. And that's something that they use in the space programs to prevent people from getting any funny ideas of trying to escape back to earth. And I know it sounds wild, but this is what I'm told by many multiple people, and confirmed by blind remote viewers, like with the Farsight Institute, on a blind scientific remote viewing basis. And we will have medical technology, clean energy technology, anti-gravity technology, perhaps portal technology on a limited basis, because it's going to have to replace a lot of the things that are going to fail in society. The days of everything made, an ocean away and then cargo ship transported and then shipped around, those are over. But the days where people are going to be making our own stuff, using our own replicator 3D printing technology, powered by clean energy, using drone technology to distribute stuff, maybe we might bring back Zeppelins and air travel. I think I've heard in other timelines that aren't as edited and messed with as ours, they still have Tartaria, never got wiped from the timeline, and airship travel is a really big thing. And so, and then from there, humanity, we get to decide as a species, how do we want to interact with the ETs? Do we want to first not only become a level 1 civilization where everyone is fed, sheltered, has energy, and access to all our needs? Do we want to join the Galactic Federation, or which federation, if at all? And all of that's why we've got a lot of work ahead of us.
It appears, from what I can see behind you, it's going to be in July from the 15th to the 18th. Is that like a Friday through a Sunday?
Yeah, actually, it's a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And
Wow.
it's partly that because we have a sister event that July 19th and 20th, Saturday and Sunday, Day of Being 5.0, hosted by your friends Zachary and Sue Fisher. It's in their 5th year. It used to be Day of Being, but now it's really Weekend of Being. And that's a gathering of the tribe, a lot of starseeds, psychics, people who survived these programs, gathering together just for a good time on the beach.
I'm surprised I haven't heard of them and that event.
Oh, I'll have to link you up with both Zach and Sue. They're amazing. And Zach has a Galactic Federation testimony where years ago, before he ever heard anything about the Galactic Federation, he literally heard a voice in his head say, "Congratulations, you've been accepted to be a representative of the Galactic Federation." And he's like, "What the hell?" And since then, he's learned a lot more of who they are and what they want, which in general is a positive advancement of humanity.
Would you consider yourself to be a starseed?
Absolutely. Yes.
And would that mean that prior to this incarnation, you were an ET somewhere else?
Yeah, and I believe the vast majority of us were, especially at this time. I mean, looking at it just from a life reincarnation law of one standpoint, I believe that we've generally lived many incarnations. And then what I'm told, and I believe this per like the Dolores Cannon tradition, from what she discovered of doing thousands of quantum healing hypnosis sessions. The Earth right now is at a turning point, and God's source put out a call for people to, or entities, beings to come here in this time to help turn around what's been going on. And so I believe that all of us here who are advancing the disclosure movement in one way or another are starseeds. And a huge amount of our people in our this community have recall of being visited by their starseed family. And then generally with that, once you've been visited by your starseed family, like cat people or tiger people, Lyrans, for example, then all of a sudden they get targeted by these military and shadow groups. And that makes perfect sense, because once the other side knows that you've got starseed DNA, that makes you very attractive to them. Because the things that they really want in their super soldier programs are psychic psionic abilities.
I've been slowly gaining more and more secret space program guests. Is it possible that there are a lot more people out there that they just haven't come out of the closet yet?
Yes, because when you take into account time travel and consciousness transfer and portal technology and cloning and avatars, now you've got a lot of room for abuse. And these programs have been doing it for decades and decades, going back to World War II at least. And then when you factor in time travel and the German breakaway in particular, it goes back further than that. And so there are a lot of people in our community, and you know, I know that there's a lot of to the naysayers and trolls out there. Oh, now all of a sudden there's all these people with all these testimony. Well, if you got programs that have been running for decades and decades and they've been brainwashing people, and that programming is finally breaking down, it seems as of 2012 en masse, that's been occurring faster and faster, then you would expect lots of people to be coming out of the woodwork with testimonies. And they are. And not only are they coming out with testimonies, they're having recalls of each other. And then they're having blind scientific remote viewers confirming these testimonies to the extent they can. And then a lot of the projects and information and code words are coming to light in leaked documents. And they've done so for decades via people, everyone from Bill Cooper to William Tompkins, who wrote Selected by Extraterrestrials, to so many people in our community. I just, the shoulders of giants.
If you get on any social media platform out there, you will see conflicting narratives and claims within the UFO community. How do you navigate this, and what red flags do you look for?
So the main red flags are when people say they were part of a program or they're an ambassador and they're the only one with this message and they need to be listened to. And then if they're saying don't listen to other people and it's not on principled reasons, because say that other person took a bad position or said something that's blatantly false, then you can call them out. It's the people who kind of play the politics and favorites. Those are red flags. Um, People who try to steer us anywhere towards transhumanism, or they've got a funny line like the Anunnaki are our friends, or all ETs are good, or all ETs are bad. I've seen different people taking both of those positions. Um, the people who are willing to talk about time travel and secret space programs, the hidden technologies, those people are generally more to be listened to. But then even then, you've got people who've gotten into the movement to try to co-opt that. I met people who are there in the community and they're real, but then down here they're doing things that aren't ethical. And so while you should take their testimony and not throw that out, you also have to be aware of them and their current business practices. And so I have to say, as someone in this field and now as a conference organizer and someone launching a full disclosure network platform, and there's a lot of ways you have to apply discernment. And a good way is really cross-checking people against each other separately to get enough independent, valid data points as you can, and then working from there and watching how people conduct themselves. Because the people who are susceptible to voice to skull and things like that, they are the ones who end up freaking out. You know, they're your friend one day, and then the next you said something or wrote something or posted a link to the wrong show that insulted them. And it just shows you who's done their shadow work and who hasn't. And people reveal themselves as to how much you can work with them or not. And some people, they start out great and then they get targeted and they get hit really hard and things happen to them and they fall off the wagon and you don't want to be near them. And then maybe they come back to their senses later on and they apologize and they mean it. You know, you don't say, at least I don't say, oh, I'm not going to work with you because you flipped out on me last month. I'm going to say, yeah, you're a survivor. You've been through a lot of stuff. You flipped out on me last month, but we can get past it. You know, I'm realizing you might flip out on me again in the future. So I'll work with you, but at arm's length until I feel that you're healed enough. And sometimes it's like that.
What other paranormal experiences have you had?
I've gotten to deal with people with entity attachments and, from what I can tell, demonic possession. I had a young business associate who was staying with us here to do housework, and he had what myself and some of our other housemates, like Jaden Mills, he can see auras. Okay. And he can also, he's an animal communicator. He's very powerful psychically. He can telepathically communicate with their dogs. They're called animal communicators. And look him up online, or anyone who looks up the telepathy tapes, and how autistic children are evidencing full on telepathy and other clairvoyant skills. He has that. And he was able to detect on our young friend, we'll call him JC. He had a very dark black aura about him, and he had a spirit of confusion. And so, you know, you try to tell him something really simple direction for simple task, and somehow he'd always mess it up. And then when you try to address him to it, he would like have this weird kind of maniacal little giggle laugh. And we literally once said, okay, JC, you know, I think you have a spirit of confusion on you. Jaden's detecting this black cloud thing floating around you. You know, we're going to pray on this holy water and pray on this water to make it presumably holy water. We're going to put some on you. And Jaden and I, we prayed over this water and we literally sprinkled some on JC. And he started giggling and shaking and trying to scratch it off, saying, and laughing, saying, it burns. Okay. And he ended up he has a lot of trauma in his life. On literally real life, his mother, he's Mexican American. His mother's side in Tijuana, they were drug runners with a Mexican cartel. And his mother was abducted by a rival gang, taken away. They had it on their house video cameras, loaded up into a car, disappeared. And then later on, the rival gang probably looks like they questioned his mother and figured out everything. And then that rival gang came back to that family compound and murdered all of his family, machine gunned them all, macheted them all. However, on the Tijuana side, um, and he went on to hook up with someone else who was staying in this house who's 50 in her 50s. She's also a very traumatized member of our community. I was trying to help her out. She hooked up with our 22-year-old associate, and she's in her 50s. They ran off and got married, and they got divorced after beating each other up while visiting his brother, I think, at Fort Bragg Army Base. And he is now no longer allowed on any military premise, U.S. military base around the world. And she's trying to sue him and go after him for his belongings. And so he's one of those people. A more overt possession is where I'm speaking with this one gal on Zoom who's asking for my help. And as I'm speaking with her, in particular, we're talking about Christ and letting God source into our lives. And then she'll like, you know, when she's like talking, she'll like, "Rah!" And she'll like jump at me and yell. And then she'll like literally have this horrified look on her face, like, oh my God, like that came out of my mouth. And I've run into people like that. And you know, you see people like that getting exorcised on a Bob Larson, real life exorcist. I since sent people her way to assist her, and they have helped her to some extent. But those are the two most overt cases where I'm just seeing the effects on JC's life, how it burned, the confusion, how he would fly into fits of anger and want to get into fights. That's why we had to kick him out and fire him, because he wanted to get in a fight with one of my senior business partners who's a Vietnam combat vet. Wouldn't have been a good idea for JC to have done that. But things like that, there's a lot of healing that needs to be done in our community, and by applying psychic hygiene, a lot of positive magic and prayer, there are the armor of God. There are ways to shield yourself from the demonic attacks, the voice to skull targeting, and there's different ways that we get targeted. And I'm getting used to, as an advocate organizer, helping people to deal with these different things, whether it's on the total spiritual demonic side of things, and getting them proper spiritual counseling and guidance so they don't have to fight that alone, to more people who are getting attacked with voice to skull because they're trying to get their testimonies out and they're coming on to shows like yours. And then how do we fend off against that by using EMF blocking wear to prevent some of the voice to skull transmission, which works. Getting them less isolated, getting them friends, getting them money, so that they're not just broken and alone and poor and wide open. And it's the whole range of that. That's what the movement is looking like right now.
Well, if people want to learn more about the conference, what website should they go to?
Please go to fulldisclosuremovement.org. That's all one word. You're going to see my amazing lineup of presenters, everyone from Jean-Charles Moyen, Project Pegasus Solar Warden, a French super soldier who was in the programs. We've got Soma Ara, the Palladian channeler. She'll be doing live channeling of her Palladian contacts at the event. She's flying over from Ireland. James Bartley is flying over from Australia. He's an ET reptilian contactee in particular, and he'll be speaking about them. People from our conference last year will be coming back to a much bigger conference than it was in our first year. Now, just our guest list alone is amazing. People like Barbara Hudak and hopefully Geraldine Orozco would like to come, but she's still finalizing whether she can join us or not. Sarah Adams. So people are really known in our community who I ran out of stage time for this year, but perhaps next year. And that's all at fulldisclosuremovement.org.
Brian, before we wrap it up, can you leave us with a last positive message?
Absolutely. After slogging through the movement for just the 3 years that I've been part of it, I have, and everyone else that I'm speaking with, not everyone, but the people closest to me who I've been working with, we've all noticed that the tide has turned. The light has won. We've been told this in multiple messages and ways, and I'm starting to see it. I'm starting to see pathways of abundance opening up. I'm starting to see more and more people are listening to the information that all of us are sharing. And I'm seeing behind the scenes cleanup. So what this all indicates to me is that we are on a higher timeline. The Star Trek future is opening up to us. If you want to be part of it, reach out to me directly on Facebook. Look up Brian Tseng, the Solar Bee, and send me a message. And we'll figure out how you too can directly get involved. Beyond sharing our links and shows like this and attending our conference, how can you directly support experiencers, help build stronger networks, and really be part of that? And in doing so, a lot of people are discovering their own testimonies.
Brian, thank you for your message, and thank you for being my guest again.
My pleasure, Jeff. It's an honor to be here, and I love the work that you've been doing and the stature that your platform has reached. So I thank you for your recognition today.
Thank you. Thanks for watching the JeffMara podcast. I really appreciate you. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. And if you do, there are loyalty badges and other perks depending on your level of membership. All you need to do is click the join button underneath the video to find out more. Thank you for your support.